class for you guys for Kizomba. So in the class today we were talking about 1-point connection, blue point connection, and also giving space both as a lead and as a follow. So we're going to start with that. So we were doing pretty simple exercises. So we're kind of trying to get out of the box at the beginning of the class. So we started with the shoulder connection. So we were just trying to create a connection. So we want to make sure that we're engaging the muscles up to where the connection is. So for the lead, just all the joints in the arm, and for the follow up to the shoulder. And we want to make sure that we're not just pressing down, but we're also like cupping the shoulder so that there's a connection on both sides, so she feels the stops on front and back. And all we were doing is walking forward and back with rocks and things like that, and kind of exploring our options of what we could do in that connection, and also playing with changing the connection on the shoulder, either just going to the front or going to the other side. So one thing that's nice that you can do is to keep the momentum, so you can keep the follow going forward, and you don't have to be touching her and then stop her, right? So as long as there's kind of intention, she's going to keep moving, right? Versus like I stop her and then she's going to stop. So if I keep intention going, you don't have to like rush into the changing your hand, because she's going to keep moving through what we're doing. And you can go all the way around. You kind of want to grab her like on a rock is a really good place to kind of change the direction for her. So with this kind of connection, it's going to be a lot harder to go into like a marca, trying to get her to put her feet together. It's going to be a lot harder, so I recommend to rock. And you're also going to find that because it's hard to get into a marca, it's going to be hard to go sideways. But what you can do is do like a closing step. Oh, sorry. I was on the wrong foot. And like direct the energy as the step is happening, and then from there, then we can get into like a side basic if we want to. It's also a lot harder to feel like if we're in basic one, because usually like if we're in basic one, even if we're like in the shadow position, we're really close to this, the hips being in the same spot, so it's easy for her to feel on what foot I'm on. But once we get really far from each other, it's a lot harder for her to feel like the weight transfer from your left to right foot. So something like just simple like this is a lot harder for her to feel. So I recommend like moving around is a good idea, and yeah, changing direction in the middle of something. Another thing with the shoulder connection is you're going to find it challenging to like pivot with just that connection. But for example, if you have both shoulders, then it's pretty easy to pivot her. So there's, although we're talking about 1-point connection, depending on what you want to do, you can always add the other hand into the equation. There's no problem with that. So we were just putting some songs on, not worrying about how to get in and out of this position, just kind of playing with what you could do in that position. Just to kind of open up your mind, which I thought was really good. And what's nice about this position is the follow has kind of more of her body free, so she can add little things with her hands and her hips and stuff and her head, because she's way more free than in a regular position, which is kind of nice to do. And then we worked also on one-hand connection with just hand to hand, and sometimes we can also do the wrists, the forearm. I don't recommend doing the hand here because we have more joints, so I always try to go like halfway on the wrist and hand, and that kind of blocks her wrist, so there's less joints to work with. But definitely if you're holding on to this, it's going to be hard to get a good connection. Why? Because it has to go through a lot of joints before it gets to her feet, so there's going to be like a delay. So for the follow, you want to brace your arm up to the point where the connection is, and you're going to usually feel that the lead's arm is tense, so you want to match the connection. So that way we can kind of walk, and if I wanted to like a tap or something like that, then she's going to be able to follow because she's tense and she's feeling what I'm doing. The more loose you are, the more time it kind of takes for things to go through your body and for you to understand what it is that we're doing. So that way I can do like quick steps too, and whoop, and stop. It's all good. It's a lot harder with no music on. So you can play with stuff like that, and it's the same thing here. Like we can go to 2 hand connections if we want, we can change around. We can also not necessarily face back or front, but sideways. There's a lot of things we can kind of play with. And you'll see that you can kind of just like switch your connections around and play. And that's the whole kind of point of these exercises, is for you to realize there's a lot of options. And it's not obviously something you want to spend the whole song doing all the time, but it's kind of a nice thing you can insert a few times in the song to have a few, maybe a couple of 8 counts of that. It's kind of fun to do. And then we were working a little bit on our Bluetooth connection too, which is great for these times because there's no touching. So basically, I'm trying to lead with the intention of my upper body. So the follow is just kind of trying to read. So she's always looking at my kind of chest area, shoulder area, and I'm really trying to lead from there. So sometimes I might exaggerate a little bit the intention, but mostly I'm just trying to be very intentful. And for the follow, she's trying to keep her distance. So we were working on just basic stuff, like 5 basics at first. And then we got into more complicated stuff like shuffle steps and Zaidas. So as long as you're kind of keeping the connection, you can do that fairly easily, but then also we can do more complicated stuff. So we were trying to do walkarounds and hinges. So walkarounds, that one you kind of have to exaggerate a little bit. So how does she know to do a circle? So we get the 3rd step of the woman Saida, and here, because I'm like doing this, she kind of gets to understand that like she wants to turn, right? So if not, she would just keep going that way, but it doesn't really make sense with the movement I'm doing with my shoulder for her to keep going that way, right? So naturally she's going to want to turn. If I wanted to keep going that way, I would open up my shoulder. And then she would know to keep going this way. And then we had talked about the hinge. Doing the hinge is kind of the same thing. It's a little harder. So we're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, and the same thing. She knows not to keep going that way because my shoulder is going this way. So just like the shape, basically you want to think about the energy and the shape that you're trying to create and where you want your follow to go, and then you can basically lead her in anything as long as she's listening, because it's definitely like a big listening exercise for the follow and like intention exercise for the leads. But it really does help. So here's the second part. So we're going to do a little bit of a solo practice for Kizomba, as some of you will probably not have a partner. So we're going to talk a little bit about self-expression. So there's definitely like specific movements that you can learn. There's definitely like you can work on your walk, you can style your walk in different ways. You can obviously also add some body movements. There's all your things that you can learn. But for me, you want to also be able to go outside the box. So today we're going to, as the other exercise with 1-point connection, we were trying to go outside of the box. So to go outside of the box when trying to incorporate styling or body movements into your dance is to not think about the movements, but to see where the music takes you. So I think I find that's a really nice exercise to do. So what I would recommend to do is just put music on and just move certain body parts. So you can say, I'm going to dance the whole song with my hips leading the movement, or with my left knee or right knee leading the movement, or my shoulder, or my head, my nose, my pinky finger. It doesn't really matter, but just play. And it doesn't have to be a Kizomba movement. It doesn't have to be any type of movement. Just see how you can express yourself with different parts of your body. I think I'll just run over, put some music on, and just gives you kind of an idea of what you could do. And I don't know what I'm going to do as far as the movement. I'll just pick any song, and then you don't have to copy me. The whole goal is to stop thinking of it about steps, about steps and specific things, and think about it more about your own self-expression, the way you feel the music. So yes, it's good to know the steps of a dance. Like if you want to just put music on and dance by yourself, it's fine, like that's great. But if you want to dance a specific dance like Kizomba or salsa or swing or whatever it is, there are certain rules and certain ways things work, and certain structure and basics and stuff that, or what we call foundation, that you want to know to be able to interact with the other dancer, especially in partner dancing. So it's basically like a language. So you need to know the basics of the language. But the order you put words in and how you talk is really, like, you can have a lot of different variations on, how you say hello to someone. You can say, yo, how is it going? Or, be very more formal and, hello, my dear, my name is, nice to meet you, how are you doing today? There's so many different ways to say the same thing, basically. So in Kizomba, it's the same thing. And although it is good to work on technique, it's good to work on your foundation, it's good to work on styling and very specific things, it's also great to, just forget about all of that and just dance and explore. Because that's how we find ourselves sometimes, and that's how we get our own style and our own ideas, and that we find new things. Because dance is always evolving and always transforming. And why is it? Because we're trying new things. And sometimes it comes from a mistake. It comes from something, that an idea that came into your head that you tried and you didn't, oh, this is not the
'pattern, so I'm not doing that. You just let it happen. So let's just try a little bit of that.
You know,